You know guys, you can start your own open source project, and provided that you have the right amount of skills and tools, and beyond the skills and tools you need the right amount of motivation and passion and some sort of dedication towards doing so. Welcome to the Linux channel guys. In this episode I am going to discuss about how to start your first open source project. And there are cases always you find there are various open source projects, and sometimes these are community driven, and sometimes these are kind of maintained individually. In this episode I'm going to discuss kind of pros and cons in both the cases as such, and we can see certain examples of various open source projects, and we can discuss one of the best, most successful and the best open source project, which is nothing else other than Linux Kernel project itself as such. So when you kind of think of open source project, you should understand you can create something which you may think in your dreams, and you can bring your dreams come true. And you can also check whether something what you are thinking, something similar has been kind of implemented earlier, or something which existed earlier, or something like that. And in that case, if it exists earlier, you can kind of come out with your own unique idea, so that your project really stands out of the crowd. And not only it gives you some sort of very good exposure experience, but at the same time there are cases also which you can almost monetize your efforts, what you are putting across in terms of building your own open source project. And initially you need to put lot of effort in terms of building your solution, and then sharing it across to the world. You can have it hosted on your own private website, or you can even host it on open source platforms like SourceForge, and there are various platforms like that. Even there is it is possible to host on Google projects and so on. So you can host it on any sort of public platform, or else you can have your own website and you can host your project, and you can write the documentation and share it across along with your source code and kind of binaries and so on as such. The next things comes into a priority is about doing your project completely individual, or doing it with some sort of community, or some sort of your own friends circle or a group as such. So it has its own pros and cons as such. When you do it completely individual, you have to kind of tackle various challenges, but at the same time not necessarily kind of you kind of break your head whenever you kind of come across any kind of obstacle and so on as such. You can just get help with the community, or in public platforms like discussion forums and so on, or even mailing lists and so on. And once you are done with getting your doubts clarified, you can proceed and you can work on your project, and you will be the sole owner of the project, and you need to take the entire burden of the project. Sometimes you need to even have skills like putting across in a nice looking website format and so on. So in case if you are having a community, or you are kind of building the community, the challenge is you need to also motivate your community, and you should always act almost like a leader and lead the team. So this is going to be like a teamwork, and there can be some sort of difference of opinions and some sort of clashes, and sometimes even there may be some arguments and misunderstandings happening between your team members and so on. In that case, almost you need to lead the entire team, and you need to motivate them. You need to make them focus towards everyone doing one task is build a sort of community effort, and make your solution done by a huge community as such. So there is lot of advantages in doing that as such. You can really achieve great things, and you can have somebody working dedicated in website development, somebody very much dedicated in working certain modules, and you as a whole kind of work on entire integration and putting the things across and so on. So it really depends. And there are also projects where you can see there are cases like there can be multiple authors working on a single open source project. Not necessarily these are community driven projects, but these are projects which are kind of owned by multiple authors, and they are also managed and maintained and built by multiple authors as well. So each has its own kind of advantages and disadvantages in a better way to put across as such. And if I compare my project, which is Traffic Squeezer project, I have almost done without any kind of community support. So I have gone through immense amount of challenges sometime during its initial stages, but it has its own advantages. Like I have the complete control of the project, not only the kernel space, hardcore technical concepts, at the same time the user space components and so on. But the disadvantage I can tell in this approach is it took really long time and to figure out and put everything across in a nice beautiful package as such. This is the kind of challenge which goes away in case if you are doing it as a kind of community project as such. So this is the challenge I need to do. Being a system software and network protocol expert, I need to deal also some sort of things which is not in my domain, something like putting across a nice web interface for Traffic Squeezer project and so on. So it really took some time, and now after gaining some amount of mastery with the PHP skills, MySQL skills and so on, I have done a beautiful web GUI in terms of configuring my kernel components as well. So not everyone may do this this kind of a feat, may achieve this kind of a feat. And the last but not least thing to discuss is also about the nature of your project as such. It can be some sort of user space components. It can be something related to web and so on, and it can be also related to something like apps and so on. And it also sometimes it depends, it may relate to something on system software context, and sometimes it may be on embedded software, and you may need to deal with some sort of embedded SoC platforms and so on. And sometimes it is not necessarily a software project. You can also design some sort of open source hardware design, and you can share across your hardware details, and by which anyone can kind of do their own hardware replicas of your concept as such. There are many open hardware platforms available already. There are various open source projects on this domain also, something which is completely out of software context as such. But in general, if you find across there is whenever you think of open source, it is 99% you find always there are software projects as such. But as I said before, it can be something else. It can be even how to mold something with a glass, and how to do something 3D printed object with, and so on as such. You can share your 3D print or model files and so on, and anyone can take it and they can print on their own as such. So it can be any project. It can be something related to architecture, it can be something related to 3D modeling, 3D printing, or it can be something related to some sort of hack or something like DIY or so on as such. It can be anything as such. Anything can be treated as an open source. But in general, whenever we talk about open source, we kind of give emphasis towards software based projects as such. So in my next episode, I'm going to discuss more about how you can kind of host these projects, and some more examples I'm going to discuss, guys. So please do subscribe to this channel. Stay tuned.